Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being with us today. Guten Tag and Servus from KUKA. I would like to welcome you most cordially to today's panel discussion with the very catchy title, How the Fusion of AI and IIoT Shapes the Future of Industrial Automation. I really look forward to discussing this very future-oriented topic with three amazing guests today. Together, we will try to find out how a smart factory is supposed to look like in order to optimize the whole production process. And we would like to find out how customers can really benefit from the combination of AI and IIoT, which is called AIoT, which stands for Artificial Intelligence of Things. To answer these questions, I'm very happy to welcome three great experts as my guests today. My first guest is Dr. Christian Liedtke, Head of Strategic Alliances at KUKA. He says, in the future, we will no longer be able to sell KUKA robots just as a piece of some orange metal, but have to move more deeply into the digital world of IIoT and AI. He's about to tell us why this is so important for the industry and what KUKA's contribution to a smart production looks like. Hi, Christian. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me here.
My second guest is Martin Dimmler, Head of Solution Strategy and Solution Engineering. Wow, what a title. He is with the KUKA subsidiary Device Insight, which is also an IoT specialist. And even more importantly, he's with us today. He says, only when well-prepared data is applied to state-of-the-art machine learning methods, then you can use the full potential of AIoT. Martin is going to explain us how the combined approach of AI and IIoT looks like and why companies who follow this path will gain greater efficiency, higher quality, and more revenue for their production. Hi, Martin. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Sebastian. Looking forward to our discussion.
And finally, this is Sweden calling. Joining us directly from Malmö is Martin Rugfelt. Martin is the founder and CEO of AI specialist Sentian. He is convinced that in 15 years from now, every production process will contain AI at least at some point. In a moment, Martin will tell us more about this and how, for example, the German sensor manufacturer Jumo was able to improve its production processes by using artificial intelligence. Good Tag, Martin.
Hi, very nice to be here.
Okay, everyone. I hope you're feeling comfortable. I would say, let's get started. My first question goes to you, Christian. Christian, we've all been talking about digital transformation for quite some time now. And one main question still is, how is the factory of the future supposed to look like and how do we get there? What would you say?
Okay, if I knew the exact answer to that, I'd be a rich man. But we're definitely talking about an IIoT integration in the factory of the future. And when talking about IIoT, people always think of predictive maintenance because it's the most mentioned use case in the environment of IIoT, which is true, of course, because it's a very simple use case. It's a very compelling concept. But what people tend to forget is predictive maintenance is just meant to increase the availability of a machine that should be running anyways. So what's even more interesting to most plant managers would actually be how can I increase my effectiveness? How can I produce more parts? How can I be faster? How can I increase the quality and things like this? And I mean, this is really the basis.
Okay, so what must be done in order to achieve corporate goals?
Well, I mean, to achieve those corporate goals, the first thing that you really need is you somehow need to interlink all the parts in your shop floor, and they must smoothly work together somehow. So bringing those together will create a lot of data then, and this data somehow must be processed. And that's where this artificial intelligence in combination with IIoT comes into place to actually bring us some benefits. Now, as KUKA, we are trying to build on these added benefits. And for that, we were talking to our subsidiary, Device Insight, to actually find a great solution to it to enhance the value of our robots.
Okay. Well, maybe let's move on to the question of applications. Martin, Dimmler, in your opinion, which measures do really make sense for companies?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to give a generic answer to that. Yeah. So the measures that you could take or the use cases that make sense to you, you cannot really forecast that at day one. Basically, they're to be found everywhere in your production plant. Yeah, and this is what makes it so exciting, because there's still a lot of room for optimizations. There's a lot of potential for improvements, and since most processes have become quite complex, it also gives you a lot of potential to leverage that with something like AI, yeah, which can handle this complexity much better than a normal human could do that in a deterministic fashion. Yeah. So in that sense, also, it's really important to stay flexible, I would say. So of course, you should start with a use case in mind. It's very important to do that, but keep your eyes open throughout the digitalization journey, so to speak, because usually what we find is once we start discussing problems, once we look at the plans, we actually find the nuggets that really increase efficiency. And
well, Christian already mentioned the linking of AI and IIoT. Why is this so important? And maybe you can describe those two technologies and their combination for us.
It's a good question. Actually, the IIoT is so important, as what Christian already said. We need data for AI to work, right? This is basically what AI is feeding off from. And IIoT has the capability to provide that data. Yeah? And in that sense, AIoT consists out of the IIoT. And if you further disassemble those acronyms, you would realize, okay, part of this word consists of things. Yeah? And those things are particularly interesting for us in the industrial context, meaning it's the machines, but it's additional sensors such as humidity, vibrations, but even sound and video image processing. And those sort of signals, yeah, you can imagine them just the way you would imagine the nervous system and the body receiving those signals, yeah, and then feeding it through the nervous system and the body to your brain, which is the AI. Yeah? And based on this data, then the AI can only work. Yeah? So in that sense, the things of the industrial Internet of Things are quite important. But you cannot really stop there. You also need the internet. Yeah? And the internet you actually need in order to have flexibility. Yeah? And this is true for data sources. So many times we would realize that the data that we really need for AI to work, we might only be able to access through the internet, because the data is found in other systems that are not readily available on the shop floor. And the internet here gives us a lot of room to access this data. For example, could be ticketing systems from a service system, but it can even be the applications of the customers, yeah, that you may not have on your access on your shop floor. And once you bring internet to this equation, you gain so much in flexibility when it comes to providing data access in that sense.
Well, this might be a good point to involve the other Martin from Sweden, Martin Rugfelt. Martin, question to you. How does AI come in here, and can I really generate business value with my data?
Good question. So I usually say that AI will be absolutely everywhere within, say, 15 years. And I really mean everywhere. And the reason for that is not for technical reason, it's for the business value. And that business value comes mainly from data, a bit from the algorithms and a bit from the systems, but mainly from data. And this is, like Martin just said, it's about the nervous system that brings the data and the brain that is intelligent. Now, just taking it to a more present day, we are talking about things like POCs and the technology, and we're seeing that companies are moving from just doing POCs to pilots, and now even to production systems, and getting all of that value from the data. And obviously, that's what they're looking for. So we're also seeing other trends like predictive analytics is very big, but it's now coming new things like products, AI products, and even AI as a service. And that makes it easier for all of the companies to really get the value. And the typical improvements we see is in the range of 10 to 15%, but also in cases all the way up to 30%.
What about the technical evolution? I mean, AI moves pretty fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. AI is still very much evolving, and it's becoming really powerful. So if you take the industry, for example, it is now powerful enough to help operators on the factory floor with whatever they're doing there and having really good support. We can even go as far as replacing advanced process control systems and offer intelligent process optimization as a service to companies. And that's sort of a new generation of control and the control optimization. And it's obviously based on new AI too. And this technology is quite amazing. AI is amazing as a technology. Take, for instance, Sentian controller. It creates a digital representation of the whole process it's controlling on the data that comes from the systems. And with that, it can look into the future and explore the future and optimize the set points for the process. And it's using a technology that's quite remarkable. It's called model-based reinforcement learning. There are other really interesting AI technologies like GTP3 for language. And you can also see it's now coming into optimization of things like supply chains and logistics, where modern AI is getting mixed with old traditional classic optimization with remarkable results.
Great, thank you, Martin. I have another question to Martin, but this time to Martin Dimmler. Martin, this all sounds very promising in my opinion, but as far as I know, these promises have not been realized yet, at least not broadly. What makes the implementation of AIoT solutions so difficult?
Well, I think there are a couple of factors playing into this, yeah, and typically it's also because you would observe two different streams working on this, yeah. And one stream is very much concerned with the technological aspects of such solutions, yeah? Where it's driven out of R&D, and you would see your colleagues carefully planning such initiatives, trying to come up with really elaborate architectures, while at the same time trying to see into the future what the shop floor architecture might look like, because they're really afraid of moving into the wrong direction, of starting on the wrong foundation. Which can really hamstring the progress of your project, yeah, because those type of companies, they would never actually start at all. And at the same time, and this is the other stream, what they do, of course, you need to work on something. Yeah, you need to make something workable in order to show progress, in order to get stakeholders excited and therefore on board to your project. And in that sense, they try to move really, really fast. So you would see a lot of vertical solutions, small POCs being established. And somehow you need to bring those two streams together. And maybe this also explains why this title that you mentioned is a bit long, because it's exactly those two dimensions of it, right? The strategic direction that you need to give your solution, as well as actually achieving results in particular use cases. And that you need to balance out. And I think what is really important to understand here is we're much more agile nowadays, yeah? Also from a technological perspective. So even when you plan out an architecture, you don't have to do this upfront and forecast 10 years into the future. You can actually do this in an iterative fashion. This is where the cloud, where the internet comes into play again. Yeah, it just gives you this flexibility to alter your architecture, to add new applications to it, to do additional means of data transformation without overshooting the project's budget. So this is certainly a big factor. The other factor for why it has not succeeded yet, in the past, it has been proven a bit difficult to reach data. We talked about this a lot already today, how important this data is. And in the past, you would see a lot of machine manufacturers working on isolated solutions. Yeah, would make it really hard for you to access data. And this is changing now. It has become much easier. There are new standards evolving, such as OPC UA. A lot of companies open up to work in alliances, such as KUKA as well, who engages heavily in the Open Industry 4.0 Alliance. where you can really feel that it makes a difference. Yeah, it just has become so much quicker to access this data. And again, with cloud technologies, many times, sometimes the data is also just not available, especially when we talk about AI. I already used this analogy with the nervous system and the brain. And actually what you do when you learn is, on the one hand side, you observe the world, of course, right? And those are the sensors that are used as an analogy. But you also need to tell your brain, you need to give it a reward in order to learn. Yeah? You need to get a validation or confirmation that you've done something right. And this type of data, those rewards, meaning, for example, the quality of something that you produced, this is especially hard to reach, because many times this data is still on paper, for example, from the quality departments. And with the cloud, we can quickly provide applications where you could digitalize this data and then feed it back into your system. So I think now we're really in a position where we can bring both streams together in a really efficient way, which is something you need, because it's also always a question of feasibility in the end. Yeah? And you can probably reach all data, but it becomes also a question of economic cost to it. Yeah? Does your business case still fly, even though maybe you spend a couple of thousand euros on accessing the data? So you also need to have this close alignment between the AI and the IIoT stream, and this is also why I'm really glad that we have such a great partner with Sentian, yeah, that we are in close alignment with.
Okay, this might be a good point to have a look at a real customer project. Martin Rugfelt from Sweden, maybe you can give us some insights. What effect does the combination of AI and IIoT have in your experience?
Well, from our experience, we know that AIoT can really help businesses today. So we can, for example, reduce energy consumption and environmental impact in the chemical industry, cut waste in the pharmaceutical industry, or manage fluctuations in pulp and paper productions. And for that matter, optimize production lines in discrete manufacturing. And if we take a more specific example, we have a customer called Umo, a German manufacturer in the automation and sensor technology industry. And they had a small but significant process variation. And from a data science perspective, they also had little data available. And this variation shifted over time, so moving around. There were time lags between measurements and results. And we applied this kind of technology on it. And in the end, we had a 10% improvement for this process. So a really nice result. And there's a lot of things you can do with AI. And in most companies, they achieve their benefits really, really quickly when they are using both AI and IoT. And I think this combination is what makes IoT so powerful.
Whoa, thank you, Martin. That really sounds very impressive and interesting. I would say 12 points go to Sweden for this great project. Yeah, it's hard to believe how quickly time is running, but we are almost at the end of our discussion. So let's try to give a conclusion. Christian, in your opinion, what do you think? How advanced is the industry? And how advanced are your customers when it comes to AI and IIoT?
Well, I mean, as we've heard from both Martins, there are projects out there. We have some POCs, we have some pilot projects. People already started investing money in this entire thing. But as you can see, there is not much actually implemented in the industry. Why is that? For the simple reason, I mean, first of all, it's expensive. It's really expensive to go into this new direction. And the question is always, do I see the benefit? The companies are mostly confused by all the different solutions that are available. Every company comes out and tells everybody about their great solution, but they're all just silos. I mean, it's hard if you have two machines standing next to each other to really connect them if they're from different suppliers. So we have to bring that all together. We have to somehow integrate that. And this will give us actually a step ahead in combining the data and using it then for artificial intelligence. So, I mean, that's the concept we heard about. And people simply need to get started with it. I think there's always a fear of maybe we cannot achieve the return on investment that we actually planned on. You just have to get started. Start to crawl, start to walk, and then start to run. It's really a step-by-step approach. And don't be afraid if you fail once, you will get insights. I mean, it's not a secret. We also had to find our way. In our own production, we tried a lot of things, and sometimes we failed, but in the end, we succeed. And that's the ultimate goal that we are aiming for. And so I can only try to motivate all the companies out there. Start with IoT, start with artificial intelligence, bring it all together, and you will receive AI IoT as a result, and you will definitely benefit from it.
Well, that sounds like very exciting perspectives. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing these very, very interesting insights with us. I think we should all stay on board of this very hot topic of AIoT. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you. I hope it was as interesting for you as it was for me. If you have any questions about AIoT, please feel free to contact us anytime. For now, all I have left to say is goodbye from KUKA. Take care. Have a good day. Auf Wiedersehen.
Industrial intelligence.